Hi, so as you know, my name is Robert Sanders, and I just want to first thank you for taking the time to interview with me, or to do this interview with me, excuse me. So I'm here, the purpose of this interview is to just kind of for me to get an idea of your eating habits. I'll be asking you some questions about, like, what eating habits you have, or dietary restrictions, or maybe, kind of how you shop at the grocery store, things of that nature. But it's going to be more of like a conversation kind of feel, so just, have fun with it, and we'll try to get you out of here as quickly as possible.
Sweet.
All right, so are you ready to begin?
Oh yeah.
Perfect. So first off, what are some of your favorite places to buy groceries?
Right now I shop primarily at Fairway.
Okay. And then are there any others, like is it just Fairway?
Sometimes Fairway's closed on Sunday, so I'll go to Hy-Vee or whatnot.
Okay.
But yeah, those two are primarily it.
Okay. And do you ever buy fresh fruits and vegetables in a separate location, maybe like a farmer's market or like a roadside stand even, anything like that?
No, not usually. Very rare occasion maybe, but probably not.
Okay, and then also, do you ever buy your meats or your proteins in a separate locations, like, farm, slaughter, butcher, maybe, any of that?
Not for me, but like when I go home, my parents do, so.
Okay, awesome. And so, what kinds of things are important to you when you are shopping for food?
Not much. It's just whatever I need, whatever I have on the list. Like there's price doesn't really factor in too much unless something's outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
Like organic doesn't matter to me. Organic, non-organic doesn't really matter to me. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, what about varieties of brand, like, freshness? I know you kind of hit on price point, but like, is any of that kind of determine your decision?
I'm not gonna buy expired food. So yeah,
yeah.
As long as it's not expired, or as long as if I'm buying milk or something, as long as I've got like a week to drink it, I'm not worried about it. But
okay.
Yeah, not really, no.
Okay. Now, does anyone in your household, or do you have any dietary restrictions, like no gluten, lactose intolerant, anything like that?
No.
Okay. And since no one does that in fact the way that you shop, like, obviously you don't have to go gluten, or you don't have to go lactose and stuff like that. Just essentially let you not have to even worry about those kind of things.
More or less. I mean, sometimes I'll shop in I don't know if it's gluten free or not, but there's certain foods that I've had before. I don't know why I tried them, but that I've tried before that I liked. So they might be gluten free, or they don't have nuts in them or something like that. I don't know. There might be something in a dietary restricted area that I've liked before that I'll buy.
Okay, awesome. Now, when you are doing your shopping, do you check labels on the food products?
You mean like content labels?
Like, nutrition, calories.
Yeah.
Okay. How often would you say you do that? Like every time you shop, just once in a while?
Well, every time I shop, but not on every item I shop for.
Okay.
So I don't do it necessarily for my meats I get behind the counter, and fresh vegetables. I don't do any of that stuff. But any boxed foods, any prepackaged stuff, I usually look for.
Okay. And what sorts of information on the food label does interest you? Like, are you looking for calories, protein, carbs, anything like that?
Calories doesn't necessarily bother me as much. There's a lot of factors that probably go into that. What I usually look for is if two brands that the price may be close or different, or I don't know what the difference between the two brands are. Mm-hmm. With prepackaged foods especially, I look for sodium count. That's usually the huge difference between a Hy-Vee or a Fairway, like a generic brand versus a name brand. Is the generic brand may be cheaper, but it's got twice the sodium in it.
Okay. Do you ever buy organic foods? I know you say you kind of tasted some and end up being gluten-free, but just kind of the normal.
Honestly, if I do buy it, it's either by mistake or because it was convenient to grab. I don't specifically go for organic, but if I grab it, I'm not upset about it. If I don't grab it, I'm also not upset about it.
All right. And how frequently do you think you may have organic foods and may accidentally grab it or something of that nature?
I go shopping once a week, so I may grab it once a week, once a month, and then if I grab it, I obviously eat it. So,
right, of course.
However often I eat whatever I bought.
Okay, and when you do purchase, accidentally purchase these organic foods, is it usually at Fairway, or I know Hy-Vee has their own little organic section?
It would more often be at Hy-Vee than Fairway. I don't think Fairway has as much of an organic selection as Hy-Vee does.
And when you are maybe buying something organic, what is it usually? Is it just like a granola bar, maybe vegetables? Okay, yeah. Awesome. And now just kind of switch up a little bit. So when we think of modern agriculture, we may think of how many farmers there are and how much food they have to produce. We may be aware of the World Food Prize even celebrated annually right here in Des Moines. So keeping that in mind, what thoughts come to your mind when you think about modern agriculture?
Modern agriculture, to me, is not the farms you really see around Iowa. It's more of the labs you see that are mass growing crops in a warehouse that has no natural sunlight.
Right.
Or like mass, I know it's not necessarily considered farming by the truest definition, but like animal farms.
Right.
You see like hobby farms here or dairy farms here that have anywhere from 30 to 200 cows, and then you see some of these places that have hundreds of thousands of birds, of cows, pigs, whatever.
Okay. Are you familiar with the ways that agriculture and science kind of like coincide together, work together to make crops more plentiful, things of that nature?
Yep.
Okay, can you describe this process to me?
There's a lot of, I guess, genetic splicing in the crops. I guess the way I know is my girlfriend's dad actually developed a species of corn they use for research in California, but they're also looking to develop crops that grow with no water.
Oh, wow.
So like places like Africa or South Texas that don't get rain, that are very dry, very hot, can still grow some of these plants we enjoy here in Iowa,
Right.
or some other places where plants are like exclusively grown, trying to get those plants to be able to be grown anywhere, so they're not so exotic, so not so expensive, things like that.
Okay, so
But yeah, it's a lot of genetic research and combining and splicing genes of plants.
right. So you obviously know like science does contribute to the food production like several
Right.
ways. You just mentioned a few yourself. Have you heard of genetically modified organisms or
Right.
GMOs?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you already know about GMOs?
That as far as GMOs are concerned, humans don't really come into contact with as many GMOs as everybody thinks we do. Most of it is used for animals, like feed for animals, and or crops used for like the production of goods.
Okay.
So maybe like fuels, or like I don't know specifically if it is cotton for clothes, but like things that are made for goods like that.
Alright, and then here's just the definition of GMO, if you can read that for me really quick.
Oh, I'd love to. Out loud?
Oh, no, you don't have to.
Thank God. Yes.
So kind of after reading this, what are your thoughts after reading the definition? Like, have you changed your mind? Do you have any more opinion on it? What do you think?
I mean, not really. It's kind of like I knew it was before.
So do you think GMOs are used very much in American agriculture?
Yes and no. I mean, they're not used in the sense that it alters human consumption. They're used in a way that allows for the growth of animals to keep up with human consumption. It allows for us to produce our own fuels, our own goods, rather than, using fossil fuels that we have to buy from other countries. It's something we can produce here, produce cheaply, and help keep up with the growing population, growing demands of society.
Okay, so there are people who argue that there are numerous benefits to the use of GMOs, and there are those who are arguing against the use of GMOs. Why do you think people would be for GMOs, and why do you think people would be against GMOs?
I think people that are for it are for the reasons I mentioned. I mean, they're necessary for our level of consumption as a world, really.
Right.
People may be against it because, honestly, in my opinion, they're not educated as to what a GMO is and how it really affects the item that is being altered. I mean, it's not being genetically altered to become live and ruin our world. I mean, it's literally just to be able to grow in different climates, to grow faster, to grow bigger. I don't know who I was talking to a while ago, but like they're saying tomatoes have like doubled in size, or apples are like so much bigger than they used to be if they're naturally grown. Well, there's nothing wrong with that apple. It's just been genetically modified to grow bigger.
Right.
It's not a harmful apple because it's been modified.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, I know you kind of said this, but do you have any thoughts about whether it's okay to consume foods grown with GMOs? And can you kind of explain kind of your stance? I know you kind of said you think it's fine, but kind of what's your stance behind that more specifically? Just
I think it's entirely safe. I mean, if the alteration is made at a genetic level, it's before the plant becomes a plant, it's still a seed. The more harmful effects on the plants that are genetically modified are the herbicides and pesticides and other nutrients added to it once it's been in the ground that don't get cleaned off before you eat it.
Right.
I mean, humans are also genetically modified, just not by scientists. It's natural modification over time. We're just expediting that process.
Right. So some companies voluntarily label food products as non-GMO foods. Do you think that's important to know? Like, do you think we should know for GMO?
I mean, honestly, it is. I personally think it's more of a marketing ploy than an actual functional difference in the product. I think it's something that is companies more pandering toward people who are afraid of GMOs to get those sales, to pull those sales away from their competitors.
Okay. Does it matter to you whether you eat foods grown with GMOs personally, or you kind of like, I mean, I know you kind of been mentioning it's okay, it's safe. So for you personally, you probably don't really mind eating foods with GMOs.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay. And then do you think that sometime in the future, food companies should be required to label products grown with the use of GMO? Like, do you think people should be informed if it is or isn't?
I think they will end up having to be informed. I don't think it's necessary, but I think people should be informing themselves on what a GMO is rather than wanting our food to be labeled GMO or non-GMO.
Okay, so since I know I've gotten your spiel of it, definitely kind of understand, but just as a whole, just kind of finish up the process, can you just summarize overall your opinion on GMOs after kind of like as a conclusion for us?
I guess GMOs are necessary to our growth as a society, our growth as a world, and our sustainability. I think they're necessary, and I think they're safe, and I don't think there's anything wrong with them.
All right, and then lastly, do you have any further questions or comments about GMOs and their uses? Anything you want to ask me? Or?
No.
All right, then we're all set. Thank you, Mr. Freese.